Welcome to Strategic Darshan. Today's analysis is on the emerging geostrategic situation in Afghanistan. This is part 1, where we will give a backdrop to the current situation in Afghanistan. Today we have Major General K.K. Sinha, who will be strategically analyzing the issue.
Today we are going to discuss a very important aspect of a geostrategic situation which is developing in Afghanistan, which have its own ramifications and the effect in the region, in that particular region where India is also directly involved in it. It has got a major concern for the India and for the rest of the world. There is a shift which is taking the strategic space. The America at its own is trying to leave it and give it, and the China is trying to take that space. You see, America is going and China is already in that area to take over that space. So is it what exactly the China was trying to do it and finding an opportunity, which very willingly the sole superpower as on today is trying to give it that space? Is the China is going to leverage it out from there? Is the Pakistan is going to be also a very important factor in this geostrategic development? How it's going to happen, we have to analyze in detail, taking all the clutter and trying to understand from all perspectives how it is going to affect the world. To understand that, it is very important to understand the area, the location, the geostrategic location of Afghanistan. Why is that important? Why it is called that, it is a kingdom or it is a place which has actually killed all emperors. It didn't allow any emperor to, come from there and, come into the world scene. Now, I will ask you to just look at these, the map of Afghanistan. When we see Afghanistan, the Kabul, which is the seat of power as in today, and for better understanding, I will explain it. You see a dotted line, which is going toward the Wakhan corridor and Bajijir Pass, and then going to KK Pass. This is the road alignment because the first country, northeast, what we're seeing is the China, Xinjiang province of the China. And this is the road which the Chinese are looking forward at the part of BRI, though that's become very important. This Wakhan, when you say the corridor itself is about 300 plus kilometers, and it is width varies from 17 to 32 kilometers. There is a Wakijir Pass. It is something like the KK Pass, Karakoram Pass. The ranges, Pamir on the north and the Karakoram to the south. And the Chinese aspirations have been, to open up in the Central Asia and come into the Afghanistan as the bigger or enlarged BRI project in going to right up to the Indian Ocean region, in which the Godar is there, and next to that is the Chabahar, which is in India control. Now, going further, when you look at the whole thing, from KK Pass through India's Gilgit-Baltistan area of the POK area, the CPAC, which is coming through the Pakistan is a very important, neighbor of Afghanistan. If you see all along this is that Durand line with Afghanistan, they have got, which is approximately 2,700 kilometers long, right up to the complete border area, which is 88%, which has now been fenced by the Pakistan. Now CPAC is running, and here we can see only the two, the roads which is coming from Peshawar and one is coming from Quetta to Kandahar and one is going to Kabul. Very important area. of Afghanistan. Over and above, there are three more important, axes, which is going from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Of course, Pakistan is the buffer, and the Pakistan has been always talking about the strategic depth when looking from the Indian perspective, as Afghanistan being strategic depth. Now we see towards its further, on the west of Afghanistan is Iran, a very important, again, a neighboring country. Iran, see, as per the Afghanistan is Sunni country, Sunni majority, and similarly, though in Pakistan is the Sunnis, Iran is a Shia country. So that divide is there. Over and above, I would like to bring it out, the road which you see from Kandahar to Hearth when it is going, and a place called Islam Kala. In that area, it crosses over. It is a very important transit route. It is also a trading route, a very important with Iran. I will later develop further importance. Then further up north is Turkmenistan. Next to that is Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. So these are the country, very important, and you see the way the roads are leading to these areas. So Afghanistan is a very important country in the Central Asia. When you say it's the gateway, and it is a gateway, works out to be anyone dominating power. And since ages in the history, Afghanistan has been its own importance. And the people over there, because of this, over a period when history goes, they are very, very determined people. They are the people who are very hardy. And, the very DNA of Afghanistan, including when you talk about the Pathans, they have got something, to do in their race of the martial race. And that is now being reflected when we see from the perspective where the situation is developing. I leave it to that and come down to quickly recapitulate those issues of last 42 years, because that has been in turmoil. And I will quickly recapitulate the historical perspective, all this, what happened, more or less a review of the situation in last 42 years. The Soviet invaded, Afghanistan in 1979. Basically, they wanted to throw those, the government, the regime which has been in the power, and these are the regime of that time. It was basically the people who were the indigenous people. They have thrown the seat at Kabul. The Soviet invaded, and they remained for 10 years to 1789. This is the time there are a lot of situations which is, and was very fast developing in that area. America was not very happy with the way the Russians have come, that time erstwhile USSR, and have influence in this area. So they also by proxy got into this. The Pakistan was the major player, and that is the time what you hear. Taliban came a little later, but Haqqani network, when we are talking about, on which everyone was depending, the Americans got it, the Chinese were also jumped in. The Pakistan was the major player, and when you look at the Pakistan in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in the northern part of the Pakistan, that is the area, this is actually started off the Haqqani network, and they, along with the support of the Pakistanis and Americans, they established a network. Even India was very, very, that time concerned about it. So we had wanted not, our own say. So even that time in the area of Tajikistan, we had our, establishment in the form of in Tajik cap, not in the Sanbay, but something further north, and at Faro Air Base, we had our own people who were controlling the air base. So that is the situation it developed, and the situation led to that, the way the Al Qaeda came and how the Russians were defeated, and then the Russians that time USSR has to withdraw its forces in '89, and that area was taken over. Slowly the situation slipped, and that is will come down to '90. The Pashtuns got into it, and that is the Taliban. Taliban, if you understand, Taliban means student, Talmiz, Talim. Taliban is the student, which is basically Pashtuns. They found again into the area of the northern part of the Pakistan, in the area of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area, the region along with this, and also the southern part of Afghanistan. When we talk about the area of Kandahar and all, they came as a challenge, and they took over this movement, and they have gone in that area basically to have the puppet government which was there, and they have overthrown. So we know that from 1996 to 2001, the way that is your Taliban, when we say 1.0, the Taliban, that is approximately 5 years time, the Taliban took over the Afghanistan. They wanted to have the Sharia, want to run the Afghanistan based on the Islamic law, and that is the time other terrorist group like Al Qaeda, Islamic State was just coming into that time as a formation, and 9/11 happened. The Americans under the and President Bush, George Bush, they intervened, and along with the NATO forces, they were able to defeat the Taliban, and they established a government which is basically the Afghan government, a puppet government of the West, and they have been ruling from last approximately 20 years, 21 years. So that was the phase of Taliban for 5 years from 96 to 2001. And then they were ousted. But they remain in that area, in the fringes, and certain areas has always been, especially when you look at the northwest side, including the southwest also, in those areas, in the area neighboring China, they had their presence. We have also seen this time, when how the things shaped up, way the allied NATO under the United States of America carried out, the operations basically for hunting of Osama bin Laden, but they were not able to do it for 11 years. And the way the Al Qaeda was growing and threatening, even it was told that time that the Al Qaeda under Osama bin Laden, they were trying to have some type of poisoning, gas. They were actually doing an experiment on the dogs, and those threat was also there, and there was a threat also that nuclear tactical weapons can go into the hand of these terrorists, and they will not only threaten the United States of America or the West, but they will threaten the whole world. That is the time also the Islamic State, that Khilafat, the concept of Khalifa, that Islam will rule this world was. And when they were hunting, Osama bin Laden. They were able to do it after once they increased the level of their American soldiers and the formations. It went right up to 1 lakh. It went of in the troop holding or the boots on the ground. That is the time they used all sort of weapon experiment carried out, all type of missiles they fired. Mother of all weapons were dropped into the Tora Bora, the caves of that area where they were expecting Osama bin Laden, but they were not able to do it. They were only, and they came, this is the time also the Pakistan got, exposed. As for the most important ally out of the NATO was the Pakistan. Pakistan got huge money basically to providing the support, the bases along the route for supply lines, the logistic to Americans. They got, military assistance. They got into the coalition support government funds. So that is the time the Pakistan got into the all because they had a huge money to play around. The Pakistan army along with the ISI, they were able to, have these tanjeems. And we have also seen, during that times how the Taliban, the foreign fighters came into Jammu and Kashmir. This is the time also we have seen that the way the famous Kandahar hijacking which has taken place in 99 of IC-814, it has gone to Kandahar, and how the Taliban right to presence of everyone's concern, they were dictating terms. So those were the days. That was, of course, I'm going back a little bit when with the Taliban was loaded. Then coming back to Osama bin Laden was eliminated without giving anything to Pakistan, not in the knowledge of Pakistan army, ISI, and in the Abbottabad, where he is, in the Quetta area. So where Osama was actually eliminated was just, there is a Pakistan military staff college of Quetta at Abbottabad. Right next to the gate, Osama bin Laden, along with his complete family and the people who matters were there in the compound, and we all know that in 2011 how he was eliminated. Here the Americans, when they had a chance to get back, and they would have been decided that what they have gone, military aim has been achieved, and they have. But this is the time. It is very important to understand. This is the time the Islamic State has more or less has the full their firm base in Afghanistan. When we call it a firm base is the place from where you have the strong base and you can actually emerge out and you go as per their concept of the caliphate, which they were talking about, the caliphate, Islamic caliphate. Probably that must have stopped the United States of America to get away from Afghanistan, and it carried on. And but we come down to 2014 when United States, they were cutting down the troops. They have drastically cut down the troops, and they stopped all ground actions. By this time, they have also, developed that the Afghan armed forces, including the Air Force. India has given a lot of support for the building of their force. India also supported them for the training part of them. There are officers cadre especially. And America, in my mind, it is very important to understand that, what I am trying to bring it out. Probably they thought that is just under Obama, even Joe Biden, who's there, who was his AD, the number 2, they were of the feeling that the standoff attacks, that is the use of air power, drones, they were able to deal it in Afghanistan, which in my mind is I think was a mistake. They should have still carried on with the ground operations. That is a different thing, altogether, a different discussion and understanding, or a review which we can carry out. But I leave it to that. And then 2016, basically that is the time the Taliban has gone a little bit as shown when they opened an office in Doha, in Qatar, their political office. That is the time, everyone started discussing, and accepting Taliban. Taliban, which was supposed to be a terrorist organization, having absolutely linkages with Al Qaeda, with Islamic State, with any terrorist organization in the world. The indication started coming that they will be accepted as a political identity. That is the time all this talks started. It 2018, during the Donald Trump's time, it happened that they started a direct talk, 2018 direct talk with Taliban. They started, and probably they realized that they will not. This is the realization has come. I think it came from 2014 itself, that they will not able to carry on militarily carry on in Afghanistan, spend money and things like that, and their forces, their efforts. This is the time also the China got an understanding of the situations. They started engaging in a big way. They invested a lot. The Chinese realized that more than $1 trillion worth of minerals are there, especially coppers and petroleum, and they had invested in a big way. They have won a lot of contracts over there. They have not started a full hog. That's why the Afghani people are slightly not very happy with the Chinese. They carried out spying also. The spying network was established by Chinese. This space, they were buying the time, and they were utilizing, China was utilizing the time. In February 2020, that is a very important date in time, when the Doha Agreement, where the Americans came to of an understanding that the Taliban will, in agreement, they have said, okay, they will not have any linkages with Al Qaeda or ISI if the Americans and NATO leave Afghanistan. So from 16 onwards, or rather 14 onwards, the Americans were thinking how to leave this space. They were worried that this space which they are going to leave will not be a vacuum. It will be quickly occupied by the Chinese. And which now what we see, what is happening is exactly which the understanding was there at that time. Now we come down. This is the backdrop of our, my first part of this. Quickly we go and carry on. What is the present situations and what is the involvement?